JD Vance and Tim Walz just wrapped up the very first vice presidential debate for the 2024 election. And overall, I would say it was a pretty decent debate. For the most part, I think that JD Vance probably had better stage presence and was a bit more fluid in his answers. But if we are actually talking about substance, I would easily say that Tim Walz takes the cake. Now, I will do a further breakdown of the debate probably in the coming days, but I definitely wanted to jump on tonight and go over the most important question that was asked in my mind, and that was questions surrounding January 6th. And if you are a tried and true American that loves this country and loves the democracy that it was founded on, the mess of an answer that JD Vance gave should be terrifying to you. So let's go ahead and look at the actual question that was asked, and then we will go over the two candidates' responses.
After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
So I really like the way that they ask this question, because while they are asking the question, they are also baking in a verifiably true fact check. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. He tried to send fake electors to the vice president on January 6th, and JD Vance came out and said that if he were vice president in Mike Pence's shoes, that he would not have certified the 2020 election. So the question is, would you seek to challenge this election if you guys lose? So this is a very substantive question. It's got the facts baked into it. Let's go ahead and see how JD Vance responds.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president, Donald Trump left the White House, and now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation.
So what do you guys think about that? Absolutely insane, in my mind. This is revisionist history. Donald Trump spent months riling up his base, saying that the election was going to be stolen, saying that ballots were being rigged and whatnot. And on the day of January 6th, he didn't just say, march peacefully. He used very provocative language. You need to fight like hell. You're not going to have a country anymore. We need to encourage the right people to do the right thing. He is the one that gathered his mob on January 6th that ended up marching to the Capitol and trying to stop the certification of this election. And they did so with violence. JD Vance just wants to gloss over all of that and say, well, Donald Trump ended up leaving the White House, so what's the big deal? And then wants to blame the true threat to democracy on Democrats and censorship? I was honestly surprised that that was the answer that he gave. But let's go ahead and listen to Tim Walz's response to the question and JD Vance's answer here.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
This is the exact correct answer from Tim Walz. We need to be big boys, and if you lose, you need to come shake my hand and cheer our team on. Because that is how democracy is supposed to work. And he is exactly right to call out Donald Trump for being the first president in our history to not go peacefully. Instead, he wanted to rile up his base. He wanted to claim that he was the victim of voter fraud and that the election was stolen from him, and marched his people to the Capitol, beating the hell out of more than 100 police officers, some who later died. We cannot let Republicans continue to get away with this revisionist history. What Donald Trump did was unprecedented. He tried to overturn the free and fair results of the 2020 election. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He tried to challenge the election in the courts over 60 times, and he lost every single one of those cases, even by judges that he appointed. So these people, Donald Trump in particular, is a threat to this democracy. And for us to have JD Vance on the stage right next to him, even saying in the past that he would not have certified the election, should be disqualifying. But JD Vance did not even stop there. He tried to claim that Donald Trump leaving the White House was still a peaceful transfer of power. I'm not even joking. Let's go ahead and listen.
First of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it.
To say that Donald Trump handing over power was a peaceful transfer of power is absolutely insane. We were all watching on January 6th when thousands of people marched up to the Capitol and started breaking down doors and breaking windows and beating the hell out of police officers. Congress members were evacuated. A woman was shot trying to break onto the House floor. These are not peaceful things. And I am very irritated that Republicans continue to rewrite history in this way. When all of America looked on as Donald Trump sent his people to the Capitol and then sat and watched them on TV as they inflicted violence on everybody around them. I can't even believe that JD Vance was dumb enough to give this answer. To try to say that it was a peaceful transfer of power is absolutely insane. He then goes on to say that, well, Democrats have been challenging elections first. So let's go ahead and see what he says here.
But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads.
He's exactly right. January 6th was not Facebook ads. And to try to say that Democrats have done anything comparable to what Trump tried to do during the 2020 election is outright disingenuous. It's a falsity. It's untrue. Donald Trump assembled fake electors and sent fraudulent documents to try to get Mike Pence to certify those fake electors. He tried to coup our government after he lost in court over 60 times, after hundreds of recounts happened, and we knew beyond a reasonable doubt that Joe Biden was the winner of the 2020 election. Donald Trump still tried to carry out a coup of the American government. We cannot let people forget that. And we cannot let these Republicans get away with rewriting history. I'll probably say it again. But it is so important that people know the extent of Donald Trump's madness in 2020. But let's go ahead and listen to Tim Walz. Actually asking JD Vance, I think this is the clip, did Donald Trump win in 2020? Really? Simple question. Should have a simple answer. Let's go ahead and take a look.
This is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
Has she?
That is a damning non-answer. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? The answer is yes. And for JD Vance to just brush that aside is troubling. One of the main things that we know about JD Vance is that he pledged not to certify the 2020 election. So I guess we shouldn't have expected anything else out of him for this particular answer. But I think Americans care. I think saving the American democracy that we all know and love is a very big motivator for many Americans. And I hope it'll be enough to make sure that we keep these freaks out of the office. We know that JD Vance promised not to certify the election, but Walz comes out and says that he will make sure to certify the election, which is the absolute correct commitment we need from a vice presidential candidate. Let's go ahead and listen to Tim Walz on that.
That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So, America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
I think that was a powerful end to this particular section of the debate. This is the exact right rhetoric and commitments that we should be hearing from a vice presidential candidate. Like I said before, that JD Vance has even gone on national TV and said that he wouldn't have certified in 2020 should be disqualifying. So I'm glad that Tim Walz was able to combat this absolute nonsense and revisionist history that JD Vance threw out here, trying to blame the threat of democracy on censorship, trying to say that Democrats were censoring people on big tech platforms, even though that case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that the government was not in violation of the First Amendment. And it was Donald Trump who actually requested, for his own personal benefit, that tweets that he didn't like be removed from Twitter. So this whole mess of an answer that JD Vance gave is complete nonsense. It is not based in reality. These people are living in a delusion, and we need to call them out every single time they try to pass it on to us. Because we were there on January 6th. We saw what happened, and we know that Biden won in 2020, and it is my hope that Kamala wins in 2024. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. If you got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to learn how cognitive dissonance is ever so present in the MAGA universe, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.